April 30th, 1945, Berlin. Beneath the burning capital of the Third Reich, the air inside the Führer bunker is thick with dust, smoke, and despair. A map of Europe hangs limp on the wall, a continent carved, then consumed by war. Adolf Hitler sits hunched over a table, his face pale, hands trembling. The muffled thunder of Soviet artillery grows louder with each passing minute. The once mighty German war machine, that had marched from the Ardennes to the Volga, now lies shattered in its own ruins. A radio operator bursts into the bunker with a message from the east. Tokyo, Germany's last ally, is burning. American bombers have reduced the city to ashes. Entire districts are gone. For Hitler, the news is not just distant tragedy. It is prophecy. If Tokyo falls, the Axis dream collapses with it. In that instant, Berlin realizes what it had long refused to admit. The deadliest alliance in human history is coming apart. Piece by piece, bomb by bomb, lie by lie. Berlin, September 27, 1940. In the marble hall of the Reich Chancellery, three men gather under glittering chandeliers. Joachim von Ribbentrop for Nazi Germany, Galeazzo Ciano for Fascist Italy, and Saburo Kurusu for Imperial Japan. Before them lies a single document, the Tripartite Pact. It promises mutual protection, global domination, and the division of the world into three spheres: Europe and Africa to Germany and Italy, Asia and the Pacific to Japan. A world reshaped under a single creed: conquest through unity. Their signature strokes echo through history, the birth cry of an alliance forged in ambition and arrogance. Yet from the beginning, cracks hid beneath the ceremony. Germany's war was racial, ideological, a crusade for European supremacy. Japan's was imperial, a struggle for dominance in Asia and the Pacific. Different wars, different goals, but for a brief, deadly moment, their paths aligned. Together, they called themselves the Axis powers. Their enemies, the Allied nations, would call them something else: the architects of destruction. By mid-1941, the Axis seemed unstoppable. In Europe, German panzer divisions tore through Yugoslavia, Greece, and into the vast expanse of the Soviet Union. In Asia, Japan's navy thundered across the Pacific, from Pearl Harbor to the Philippines, from Singapore to Burma. The world trembled under their combined shadow. Propaganda films in both Berlin and Tokyo celebrated the New Order, a world liberated from Western decadence, united under discipline, strength, and destiny. But behind the slogans were doubts. The distances between Berlin and Tokyo were vast, the coordination nearly impossible. Even communication between the two regimes took weeks. There was no shared command, no unified plan, only mutual illusion. Still, for a moment it worked. Axis soldiers raised their flags over half the world's population. But ambition breeds blindness, and the higher they climbed, the deadlier the fall would be. 1942. The year that changed everything. At El Alamein, Rommel's dream of reaching the Suez Canal died in a storm of British fire. In Stalingrad, entire German armies were encircled and destroyed. And in the Pacific, Japan met its reckoning at Midway, where 4 aircraft carriers, the pride of the Imperial Navy, were sent to the ocean floor in a single day. The tide had turned. The Axis powers, once hunters, were now hunted. By 1943, Mussolini's Italy collapsed. The Duce, once hailed as the father of fascism, was overthrown and imprisoned by his own people. Germany scrambled to occupy Italy, but it was too late. One pillar of the alliance had already fallen. In Berlin, panic spread. Hitler raged at betrayal. In Tokyo, the generals whispered, "Germany cannot win." The alliance, once bound by victory, began to dissolve in defeat. 1944. The walls of the Reich were closing in. Allied bombers reduced German cities to rubble. On June 6th, D-Day opened a new front in France. In the east, Soviet armies pushed relentlessly toward Berlin. Yet even then, Hitler believed Japan would turn the tide. He imagined Japanese forces striking Siberia, forcing the Soviet Union to divide its armies. But Japan had its own nightmare. The island nation was surrounded, starved, and bombed day and night. For years, Berlin and Tokyo had promised to aid one another. But neither could save the other. Then came the cruelest blow. In August 1945, the Soviet Union, once neutral with Japan, invaded Manchuria, crushing the Japanese Guandong Army in mere days. The same Red Army that was now marching through Berlin had turned its guns on Tokyo's last hope. The pact of steel, of brotherhood, of shared destiny, lay in ruins. April 1945. Berlin. Soviet tanks roll through the suburbs. The sky is black with smoke. German children, barely 14, clutch rifles in trembling hands. Inside the bunker, Hitler receives one final report. Tokyo has been struck again. American bombers have destroyed more than half the city. The Japanese cannot hold. He stares at the concrete wall. Silent. He knows. The Reich he built will not survive. And his ally across the world will soon join him in destruction. On April 30th, Hitler ends his life beneath the ruins of Berlin. 1 week later, Germany surrenders unconditionally. But for Tokyo, the nightmare continues. 2 atomic bombs, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, erase entire cities in an instant. The emperor, his voice trembling, addresses his people for the first time. We must endure the unendurable and bear the unbearable. On September 2nd, 1945, Japan signs its surrender aboard the USS Missouri. The Axis alliance, the deadliest coalition in history, ceases to exist. The world emerges from 6 years of total war, broken, haunted, but awake. The alliance that once dreamed of world domination left only ashes in its wake. Tens of millions dead, nations destroyed, empires erased. In Berlin, silence falls over the ruins. In Tokyo, smoke still rises where wooden homes once stood. 2 cities, half a world apart, united in tragedy. The alliance that promised glory delivered annihilation. The dream of a new order became a nightmare of genocide and ruin. And yet, from that ruin came rebirth. Germany and Japan, the once deadliest partners in war, would later rebuild into peaceful democracies, rising from destruction to become symbols of resilience. But history whispers a warning. Every alliance built on conquest carries within it the seed of its own destruction. For when unity is born from hatred, it cannot endure. The day Berlin realized Tokyo would fall was not just the end of a war. It was the end of an age of blind ambition, of ruthless empire, of man's belief that power alone could shape the world. From the bunkers of Berlin to the ashes of Hiroshima, the world learned the cost of silence, obedience, and pride. And it learned painfully that peace is not given, it is built. History remembers the victors, but it honors the lessons of the fallen. If we forget the day Berlin realized Tokyo would fall, we risk repeating the arrogance that led to it. So let this story live. Share it, speak it, teach it so that future generations may understand what happens when ambition becomes obsession and alliance becomes destruction. Because history does not fade on its own. It is carried forward by those who remember. In memory of the millions lost in the deadliest war humanity has ever known. Subscribe, share, and keep history alive.